This video is sponsored by Squarespace. How are you supposed to know when food is too old to be eaten? Especially with things like dry goods that don't tend to decompose in any really visually apparent way. Well, one thing that you could do is look on the box, look at the expiration date. And Brits, by that, of course, I mean the expiry date. You see, this box of couscous is set to expire April 11th, 2025. That's pretty soon. I've had this for a while. Yeah, couscous is one of those things that I have a bad habit of buying on the assumption that I might need it at some point in the future because I figure, hey, it'll last forever. But here we are, just a few weeks away from its expiry date. Does that mean I need to throw it away? Absolutely not. First of all, it doesn't say it expires on this date. It says it's best before that date. That means its quality might degrade. How would the quality degrade with a dried pasta product like couscous? Couscous is just very small little bits of pasta. Well, I think what would probably happen is that it would start getting kind of brittle. Instead of cooking up all sort of chewy and stretchy, it would get sort of crumbly in the mouth. But even if this said, do not consume after April 11th, 2025, I still wouldn't necessarily take that as gospel because I'm a thinking person and this is just a corporation telling me what they want me to believe, which is not necessarily like a bad thing. I mean, I think there are legitimate reasons for corporations to exist and for them to communicate about their products. There's nothing wrong with that. But my problem with an expiry date is that I think it tends to imply some government sanction, right? Which is simply not the case, at least not in the United States and similar jurisdictions. With the notable exception of baby formula, there is no law in the US that says you have to put an expiration date on your food product, and there's no law governing how that date should be calculated. So when food companies put a date on their products, they're kind of freelancing. They're doing whatever they want to do, and that requires us to interrogate their likely motives. And I'm certainly not speaking specifically about the good people at the Decoding company. I like their pasta very much, and I'm sure that they're lovely people. But they have several motivations for putting an expiration date on their product. One is so that you don't have a bad experience, right? If you eat a bunch of crumbly pasta that's all mealy and not stretchy and chewy and delicious, well, you might get mad and then you might go on TikTok and do like part 43 of my beef with Decoding, right? Or you might get mad at the retailer who sold this to you. And if the retailer gets lots of complaints about a product from a particular company, that retailer is going to turn around and get mad at that company, which is a bad thing because, they sell a lot of pasta. Food companies also don't want you to get sick eating their products, which could happen. Pretty unlikely with old pasta, but old milk or something, sure, you could get sick from that. They don't want that to happen, A, because they're decent human beings, presumably, and they don't want you to suffer for no reason, a fellow sentient creature. But they're also perhaps more immediately worried about legal liability, right? Getting sued and losing. So in that sense, expiration dates can be interpreted as a kind of CYA policy, cover your ass legally, right? What they're saying is that if you eat this beyond this date, then we cannot be held legally liable for whatever happens to you. And of course, they cannot unilaterally declare that they are not liable. Of course, they try to. It all depends on what the courts say. But another reason why companies might want to put an expiration date on their product is to make you worried that it's too old, causing you to throw it away without eating it, go to the store and buy another one. And then they get 2 sales for 1 dinner, right? It's probably less likely to happen on the individual level, but on the retailer level, oh my gosh. Stores, grocery stores, they don't want to be seen selling expired merchandise. And so they're very motivated to take expired merchandise off the shelves before consumers even get a chance to buy it. And again, I'm not talking about these people in particular. I just think this is generally true of food manufacturers. They do have a certain money-making motive in encouraging grocery stores to take older product off the shelves so that they can sell more to that grocery store, so that grocery store can sell more to you. As a result of all these factors, nearly every prepackaged food product that you find on the shelves in the United States, at least, is going to have an expiration date on it. I found this thing of fancy salt in my pantry, and it has what looks to be an expiration date on it, September 2027. That can't be a manufactured by date because it's in the future, unless this came from the future. Anyway, this salt expires in 2027. It's a rock. Salt is a rock. Rocks don't generally expire. But they do dissolve, and in a really humid climate or something, this might start like clumping up, and that's a reason for them to put an expiration date on it. I get the business practice, but from a consumer standpoint, I think expiration dates, especially on dry goods, just don't tell you very much that's very valuable. What I want to know instead is, when was the product manufactured? How old is it? And believe it or not, you can usually tell if you know how to read the code. It depends on the package and the product, but it usually works something like this. Down here you have the expiration date. This is what's known as the open date. It's easy to read. Over next to it is a whole bunch of letters and numbers and stuff, and this is referred to as the closed date. And it might include information beyond just the date of manufacture. It could also include the batch number, the plant where it was made, if they ever need to trace down the product and where it came from. Companies will put their own little personal internal code onto the package that tells them all of that information, and you can usually crack the code. Some companies will actually put the information on their website, on their FAQ. They'll tell you how to read the closed date on their package. For other companies, there's like resources online, I think usually made for like retailers or distributors that just kind of compile all of the codes from lots of different companies. And this is a Googleable thing. Put in the name of the company in like closed date format, and you can generally find something. But a lot of them tend to work exactly the way that this one does. You will find a 5-digit number. 2 of those digits will indicate the year. 3 of them will indicate which day in the year it was. So here we see a 22, and let's just assume for a second that the 22 indicates the year. It's a logical assumption because dry goods usually are set to expire 2-3 years after they were manufactured. And then next to the 22, we have a 3-digit number, which is 101. Guess what the 101st day of the year 2022 was? It was April 11th. Yeah. This is set to expire exactly 3 years after it was produced. This was produced about 3 years ago. Canned goods actually are legally required in the US to put some kind of information to make them traceable on the bottom, though not necessarily an expiration date. Because cans are sealed, there's no air, you can get anaerobic bacteria like the kind that cause botulism, which isn't super common anymore because of advances to can technology. The plastic liners on the inside make it a whole lot less likely to happen. But botulism is such a horrific disease that they still really want to make cans traceable, and I'm down with that. Anyway, the expiration date on these beans is December 27th, 2026. And then the code above it has a 24. I'm guessing these were made in the year 2024. I see a 27 next to it, which I would guess probably indicates the day of the month, which is 27. And then there's an L. I don't know. They sometimes use letters to indicate months that are beyond the number 9, which would be September, right? So maybe L means December in their system. I'm not sure, but my guess is that this is just set to expire once it's about 2 years old, right? Anyway, the more you do this and you look at different products, you'll start seeing something interesting about expiration dates, is that they're always at these really even numbers relative to the date at which they were manufactured. So something like fruit juice that you might keep in the fridge, it'll often have an expiration date that is 2 weeks exactly, 14 days after the date of manufacture, or a month. And then with dry goods like these, it'll usually be a year or a year and a half or 3 years. So what does all that tell us? I mean, at face value, what that would seem to tell us is that food items have an incredible property where they tend to expire at nice, even, round numbers relative to the date at which they were manufactured. I mean, you could imagine that a really well-run food company would take samples of its product, hold them at different humidity levels and different light levels and such, and then do a systematic testing of their quality at certain time intervals over the course of years. And from that, you could end up putting together a number that is sort of the average of when quality starts to noticeably fall off. If you did that, what are the odds that that number would be 2 weeks, a month, a year and a half, or 3 years? Those odds seem rather low to me. These numbers are arbitrary. Actually, no, that's too strong a word to use. It's not random, these dates. They are ballpark estimates. Enormous, gaping ballparks, right? And when food companies make those kinds of guesses, they have every motivation in the world to guess very conservatively, to say that their product is best after a very, very small window of time. Because A, they're trying to cover their asses legally, and B, they just want you to buy more. So they want you to convince yourself that this is not good anymore and to throw it away and go out and buy more. This is absolutely fine. So what do public health authorities say about how old something can be before you need to throw it away? Well, the first thing that most of them will say if you go to their websites and read their literature that's intended to inform people in the public like you and me, is that the first thing you need to do is use your senses, right? The expiration date is not necessarily an indication of safety. What is a better indication of safety is, does something look or smell or feel rotten? Does it feel off? Does it seem a little bit something not right about it? When in doubt, throw it away, right? That's not going to keep you out of all trouble, because there's absolutely bad things in food that can hurt you that you would not taste whatsoever. So things like chemical contamination, but that wouldn't have anything really to do with the expiration date. Things like pathogenic bacteria. Spoilage bacteria and pathogenic bacteria are usually not the same ones. Spoilage bacteria are ones that kind of make the food smell or taste kind of rotten. They usually just don't hurt you that badly, whereas the ones that do tend to hurt you badly also unfortunately tend to not make the food taste rotten, but they tend to exist in tandem with each other, right? Because conditions that result in the growth of spoilage bacteria will probably create growth of pathogenic bacteria. So if you smell or feel spoilage bacteria, there's a good chance that it has pathogenic bacteria, but there's a chance that you just have a whole lot of pathogenic bacteria and very few spoilage bacteria, and as a result, you've got something that's going to taste just fine and it's going to make you sick. And that's not great, but it happens and it's a risk that we live with. The odds probably go down at least a bit when you eat something that's fresher, and so that's a reason to prefer fresher food. But that's also not necessarily a reason to throw something away just because it's old. If we go to foodsafety.gov, a US government website that is still here, and we look at their sort of dates for refrigerated food. When should you eat these different things? 3 to 5 days for fresh beef. Ham, if it is uncured, 3 to 5 days, 5 to 7 if it is cured or salted, right? Leftovers in the fridge, they say 3 to 4 days. I don't know where they're getting the range from, 3 to 4. That's kind of odd, given that these are all obviously just kind of round number estimates. And these numbers are also pretty conservative, because the United States Department of Health and Human Services also wants to cover its ass, if not legally, because they have some amount of protection from lawsuits, but morally, right, ethically, the people who work there, especially the scientists, tend to really care about how their work is going to affect humanity, and they don't want to risk getting another sentient fellow human being sick. Likewise, I, as a hopefully relatively responsible YouTuber, I'm really scared about getting you sick, and as a result, I tend to kind of not really give you very much information about how long something can be kept, because I want to cover my own ass. And I suppose by extension, cover your ass as well. Like, I don't really care about being sued that much these days. I probably should, but I care more about whether or not I hurt someone. There's a kind of information that the public wants, but that experts are hesitant to provide because they don't know for sure, because they can't know for sure. It's going to depend so much on your storage conditions and the particular product involved and all of that. We can't be sure, and so we don't say anything, because to get it wrong would be to hurt someone. So now is when I say something ostensibly indemnifying, right? Like, eat at your own risk, rely on your own senses at your own risk. But that honestly is probably my best advice, and it's also the best advice of the experts if you read their stuff, right? They basically say, look at it. Does it have mold on top? Then don't eat it. If it smells like roadkill, don't eat it. If it looks and smells fine, it probably is, because food can and does last far, far, far longer than the numbers would indicate. And there's a legitimate public interest to be served in encouraging people to eat food that they might otherwise be a little too scared to, because our food system wastes, depending on what study you look at, something between 30 and 40% of all food ends up in the trash, with much or most of that waste happening at the consumer level. That means all of our food is 30 to 40% more expensive than it needs to be, and 30 to 40% less sustainable than it needs to be. So minimizing food waste is a good thing. Another good thing is Squarespace, sponsor of this video. Whether you have a public health message that you need to get out there, or if you just want to advertise your small business or even your very large business, you can do all of that with Squarespace. Set up a whole business online where you can take people's money, sell them products, anything you could need. It's all a one-stop shop right here at Squarespace. Let's get started. So you can go over here and browse some templates if you want, or you can use Design Intelligence from Squarespace to design your own. Just answer some questions. The computer will do a lot of the work for you. What do I want to do? I suppose promote an event or project, my project to get people to eat slightly older food, and I want to maybe collect some donations while I'm at it, because, this ain't free. Eat older food squarespace.org. And I want my brand personality to be, let's say, friendly. It seems accessible. What kind of sections do I need? An intro section, an about section, my social links, all of that stuff. Choose my color palette, and none of these decisions is irreversible, right? Ooh, man rope sounds like the font for me. All right, now we're in and we can just start replacing their stock content with our content. However, we can use their stock photos in here. They have a huge library. We can edit our photos in here. Really, it's one stop. There's my picture, and then if I need to move things around, it's all drag and drop now in Squarespace. It just could not be easier to do this. And you can look at how your website looks in mobile view and adjust that independently, which is really important, obviously. And then let's say I want to take people's donations. If they want to help me get my message out, I just drop in one of these standard donation boxes. And then Squarespace helps you process the payments via whatever payment system you need anywhere in the world, Swift, whatever. And they'll also host your website for you, so you don't have to worry about paying somebody separately for that. They actually host the website on the internet for you. They can even register your custom domain for you. Designing a website is free, but hosting it or getting a custom domain name, those you have to pay for. So when you do that, think of your old buddy Goose and save 10% using my code Ragusia at checkout. Squarespace.com/Ragusia. Thank you, Squarespace. And thank you, dry goods. Under ideal storage circumstances, you can keep these essentially forever. If you don't believe me, hey, check out the story of the honey that they found in King Tutankhamun's tomb. 3,000-year-old honey. Scientists did a chemical analysis on it. It was still edible. It's possible. I'm not saying eat anything that's 3,000 years old, though. You know, because honey has like some particular enzymatic and microbial sterilizers in it, and low water activity, lots of sugar. It just really, really depends. So, you know, it's up to you.